so now I'm going to paint the base layer. Now the base layer basically consists of solid paint, so now you don't add any terps unless the paint is so dry it's not moving, then you add a little bit of terps. So with each section that you paint your base layer, you just choose a mid-tone or a mid-color, because we're going to brush all the detail, the lights and the darks on the top of the painting. So I'm going to be using just simply raw umber and titanium white for this process. Okay. So raw umber is a relatively weak pigment because some paints are very strong, like the transparent colors. For example, alizarin crimson and sap green are transparent colors. And a lot of the opaque colors are a lot weaker, so when you add them to other colors, they don't take over as much. So just chucking on the very basic shapes, also adding a little bit of burnt sienna, just here and there. As I say, keeping it very, very basic because the details get added later.
Now, is there a reason that you're adding the darker colors first, or is that?
Sometimes I add the darkest color first, sometimes not. It depends. The darker colors are in the minority in this particular image. So it's a little bit easier in this case to chuck them down and then just to fill in the in-between bits with another color. Okay, so I've just started blocking in the darker shapes using solid paint, because the next layer we're going to go back to thin paint again. Keeping it as basic as possible. At this layer there are 3 different ways one can block the colors in. One is the patches method, where you patch little bits of different colors and different tones, and then you blend it together. Well, you blend the areas that have soft edges, and of course you don't blend the areas that have sharp edges. That's a lot more difficult. We're mostly going to be using the dry brush method, where the base layer is flat and the shadows and the shapes are mostly put on the top of the painting. The third method is the wet in wet method, where you actually do a lot of painting into the wet paint. We'll do a little bit of that further down the track. So with edges, it's rather keep the edge too soft than too sharp when you leave a painting, because it's easy to sharpen an edge when it's dry. Not very easy to soften an edge when it's dry. So the base layer we keep very, very vague so that we can put the details on the top. Okay, so the base layer, as you can see, very, very vague, very little detail, and of course the vagueness allows you to move things around easier when we use the other drawing techniques that I'm going to show you to get everything into the correct placement. Also, you really do want your paint to be solid. One way of checking that it's solid is putting it against the light, turning it around, putting it against the light. Then we can see where there are cracks with not enough paint on the canvas. Okay, so this is the quantity, not quality layer. The layer where you slap it down and you paint, you know, the whole area at once. Later on, when we get to the quality, not quantity area, we will focus a little bit more in on one area at a time. Okay, so just smoothing off the last bits of the painting. Just smoothing with my fingers. I've put everything down with the brush, but sometimes just to finish off the last bits, the fingers can be quite useful. You just got to make sure that you don't do this with lead white or the cadmiums, because they are a little bit toxic. Well, actually they're a lot toxic. So yeah.
Yeah.